Life often presents challenges that test our faith, endurance, and strength. Yet in moments of exhaustion and despair, we discover a profound truth. God created us to trust Him. This trust is not a sign of weakness, but the path to true peace, joy, and purpose. This is how God's presence sustains us, especially in our most difficult times. So subscribe to the channel and let's get started. God designed us to depend on Him. In Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis compares human beings to machines that are designed to run on God. He explains that just as a car needs gasoline to function properly, humans are meant to find their strength, purpose, and fulfillment in God. This idea suggests that, much like a machine's parts working together in harmony, when it is used correctly, humans are most complete when they are connected to their Creator. When we try to live our lives without God, we are like a car running on empty, or a machine that is missing a crucial component. We might still move forward for a while, but eventually we will break down. It's not that we can't achieve things apart from God, but the deeper satisfaction, peace, and joy we seek will always elude us. This is why people often feel restless, unsatisfied, or lost even after achieving success or material wealth. The purpose and fulfillment we long for are not found in external achievements alone, but in our relationship with God. Jesus' words in John 15:4 underscore this truth. He tells us, "Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine." This is a powerful image of dependence. A branch that is detached from the vine cannot bear fruit, just as we cannot live the life we are meant to live apart from God. The vine provides everything the branch needs to grow and produce fruit. And in the same way, God provides the sustenance and purpose we need to thrive. This dependence on God is not a weakness, but a recognition of how we were created. It's like acknowledging that a plant needs sunlight, water, and soil to grow. If we try to live without these basic elements, we will wither. God is the source of life, and when we stay connected to Him, we can experience spiritual growth, peace, and a sense of purpose that is not fleeting. Moreover, this dependence on God is not meant to be burdensome. It's actually freeing. When we accept that we are meant to depend on Him, we stop struggling to control every aspect of our lives. We can release the pressure of having to do everything on our own, knowing that God's presence will guide and sustain us. Just as a branch doesn't worry about producing fruit, we too can trust that when we remain in God, our lives will naturally bear the fruits of His love, joy, and peace. This relationship with God is not about simply following rules or rituals. It's about intimacy and trust. Just as a child looks to their parent for care and security, we are invited to rely on God, knowing that He knows what is best for us. It's in this relationship that we find true rest and fulfillment, because we are aligning ourselves with our Creator's design. Ultimately, God designed us to depend on Him, not because He wants to control us, but because He knows that we are most alive, most peaceful, and most fulfilled when we live in connection with Him. Our lives are like a tree whose roots reach deep into the soil of God's love. Without Him, we cannot grow in the way we were meant to. But when we remain in Him, we experience the fullness of life that He offers. God is attentive to our pain. In times of pain and heartache, it can often feel as if no one truly understands what we're going through. We may experience moments of deep sorrow when it seems like our cries go unheard and our grief goes unnoticed. Yet, the truth that God is attentively aware of our pain can bring a deep sense of comfort and hope. The psalmist reminds us in Psalm 56 verse 8, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle." These words speak volumes about the tender care God has for us in our moments of distress. God is not distant or indifferent to our suffering. He sees each tear that falls, hears every silent cry, and understands the pain that others may not even notice. The idea that God collects our tears in a bottle is a beautiful image. that reflects his deep concern and compassion. It's not just about acknowledging our pain. It's about the intimate, personal attention God gives to every moment of sorrow we endure. This metaphor suggests that God treasures our pain, as difficult as it is, and holds it close to his heart. It's as though he is saying, "I see you, I understand, and I am here with you." Often, when we go through difficult times, we may feel alone or isolated in our suffering. But the promise in Psalm 56 verse 8 reassures us that God is not a distant observer of our lives. He is not passive when we suffer. Rather, he is present, close, and deeply aware of everything we are feeling. His attentiveness to our pain is not limited to our most visible moments of sorrow, but extends to the quiet, private hurts that others may never witness. God's attentiveness is not just a matter of awareness. It is a matter of active care. When we suffer, he does not remain passive. He is near, offering comfort, strength, and his presence. Just as a loving parent holds their child when they are hurt, God draws near to us in our times of distress. He doesn't promise to take away every pain or remove every burden immediately, but he does promise to be with us, to walk alongside us, and to carry us through the storm. In our grief, we may question why certain things happen, why suffering exists, or why we have to endure such heartache. While these are valid questions, it's important to remember that God's response to our pain is not just an answer to those questions, but his presence in the midst of it. His compassion is not about providing all the answers, but about being the loving companion who is always with us. His care goes beyond fixing things. It's about being there in the dark moments, offering his peace and comfort. Knowing that God is attentive to our pain doesn't mean we will never experience heartache, but it does mean that we are never truly alone in it. We are seen, heard, and cared for by the Creator of the universe. And when we trust in this truth, our hearts can find comfort in the knowledge that every sorrow, no matter how small it may seem, is significant to God. He is with us, collecting our tears, and providing the support we need to keep going even in our darkest hours. Jesus offers rest for the weary. In life, it's easy to become overwhelmed. The demands of work, family, responsibilities, and personal challenges can leave us feeling exhausted, drained, and worn out. In these moments of fatigue, it often feels like there's no escape or way to recharge. But in Matthew 11:28, Jesus extends an invitation that can bring deep comfort and peace to our weary hearts. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." This invitation is one of compassion. Jesus doesn't offer a quick fix or a solution to make all our problems disappear. Instead, he promises rest, a rest that goes beyond physical sleep or temporary relief. This rest is about finding peace in the midst of our struggles, an inner renewal that only God can provide. The rest Jesus offers is not simply about taking a break from the world's demands. It's about connecting with him in a way that allows us to recharge spiritually and emotionally. When we come to Jesus with our burdens, he provides the strength and solace we need to face life's challenges with a sense of peace. Life often feels like a constant race. We push ourselves to keep going, hoping that we can eventually find a moment to catch our breath. Yet, this constant striving can leave us feeling more exhausted, not less. The weight of our burdens, whether they are physical, emotional, or mental, can feel suffocating, and sometimes it seems like no matter how hard we try, we cannot carry them on our own. This is where Jesus' invitation becomes so meaningful. He is offering us an alternative. Instead of trying to go it alone, we can come to him, and he will give us rest. This rest isn't about escaping life's difficulties, but about finding a new way to handle them. Jesus offers a deeper, more lasting peace than the temporary relief we often seek. When we come to him, he doesn't take away every challenge, but he provides the strength and perspective we need to endure. The rest Jesus offers is a spiritual renewal that allows us to face each day with a renewed sense of hope and resilience. It's a reminder that we don't have to carry our burdens alone. Jesus, with his infinite strength and grace, is there to carry them with us. Moreover, the rest Jesus offers is also an invitation to let go of the weight of self-reliance. Often, we try to do everything on our own, believing that we have to solve every problem and handle every burden by ourselves. But this can lead to burnout and frustration. In inviting us to come to him, Jesus is inviting us to release the pressure of perfection and self-sufficiency. When we trust in him and surrender our worries, we find a peace that surpasses our understanding, a peace that comes from knowing that we are not alone in our struggles. Ultimately, Jesus' invitation is a call to refresh our souls, to rest not just in our bodies, but in his presence. It's a reminder that we don't need to keep striving endlessly to find peace or fulfillment. When we come to him, we find that the rest we long for is already available to us. All we need to do is come, lay down our burdens, and trust in his loving care. In return, he promises to give us the rest we so desperately need, bringing comfort, renewal, and peace to our weary hearts. Reliance on God is a daily practice. Reliance on God is not something that happens once and then stays with us forever. Instead, it is a practice that needs to be renewed each day. C.S. Lewis wisely points out that trusting in God is something we must choose again and again, as if we've never done it before. This daily renewal of trust and dependence on God is essential for living a faithful life. Each morning brings a new opportunity to turn to him, to commit ourselves again to his care and guidance. Lamentations 3:22-23 beautifully highlights this truth. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. These words remind us that God's love and mercy are not just a one-time gift, but are available to us anew every single day. Just as we need daily food to nourish our bodies, we need God's grace to sustain us spiritually. Each day we wake up to find his compassion and faithfulness waiting for us, offering the strength we need to face whatever comes our way. This idea of relying on God daily means recognizing that we cannot carry the weight of life on our own. There will be challenges, moments of doubt, and times when we feel lost or overwhelmed. In those moments, we are invited to look to God, not as a last resort, but as the first place to turn. His mercies are fresh every morning, ready to meet us right where we are. No matter how hard yesterday may have been, no matter how many times we've fallen short or struggled, we are given a clean slate to begin again today. A big part of daily reliance on God is choosing to trust him with our lives every morning, regardless of what happened the day before. It's easy to get discouraged, especially when we face repeated failures or obstacles. We might start to think that God's patience with us is running out or that his mercy is limited. But Lamentations reminds us that his love is vast and never-ending, and his faithfulness is great. Each day is an opportunity to come back to him with open hearts, ready to receive his mercy and guidance again. This daily commitment to rely on God also helps us stay focused on what truly matters. Life can be chaotic, and we can easily get distracted by the demands of the world, our own worries, or the desire for control. But when we wake up with the intention of depending on God, we put our focus back on him. We remember that he is the one who holds our lives in his hands, that his plans for us are good, and that his strength will carry us through. It's not about doing everything perfectly, but about acknowledging that we need him and inviting his presence into our day. Each day that we rely on God is a step closer to living the life he intends for us. It's a process of growth, learning to trust him more and recognizing his faithfulness in every moment. As we renew our trust in him each day, we begin to see how his love and mercy shape our lives, bringing peace to our hearts and strength to our souls. This daily practice of reliance on God is a beautiful way to live, knowing that His grace is always there, waiting to meet us where we are and carry us through. God's timing is perfect. In life, there are times when we find ourselves waiting for relief from pain, answers to our prayers, or for a change in circumstances that will bring peace. In these moments of waiting, it's easy to feel frustrated or discouraged, as if the help we need is never going to come. But the Bible reminds us that God's timing is always perfect, even when it doesn't seem that way to us. In Lamentations 3:25-26, we are assured that the Lord is good to those whose hope is in Him, to the one who seeks Him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. These verses speak to the beauty of trusting in God's timing, even when we are in the midst of waiting. Waiting on God can feel difficult, especially when we are in seasons of hardship or confusion. We want things to change quickly, and it's tempting to believe that if God truly cared, He would act faster. But waiting is not a sign of God's neglect. Rather, it's an invitation to grow in faith and trust. In those moments, we are reminded that God sees the bigger picture, something we cannot always perceive. His understanding is far greater than ours, and His plan is always for our good. The waiting period is not wasted time. It's an opportunity to deepen our dependence on Him and learn to trust in His perfect timing. When we wait on God, we are not just waiting for things to improve in our circumstances. We are waiting for His intervention, His guidance, and His presence in our lives. As Lamentations 3 tells us, the Lord is good to those whose hope is in Him. Our waiting is not in vain, and it is not without purpose. God's goodness is at work even when we don't see immediate results. He is preparing something for us that is far better than anything we could have imagined on our own. The blessings that come from trusting in God's timing are often beyond what we can understand in the moment. This kind of waiting also requires quiet trust. It is easy to become anxious, to wonder if God is hearing our prayers, or to start doubting whether things will ever get better. But the invitation in these verses is to wait quietly, to have peace in the waiting, knowing that God is working behind the scenes. Quiet waiting doesn't mean we stop praying or seeking God. It means we stop striving to control the situation and allow God to lead us in His perfect way. In the quietness of waiting, we learn to surrender our own timeline and trust that God's plan is far better than anything we could orchestrate on our own. In the waiting, we often discover that God is not only preparing something for us, but He is also shaping us. We become more patient, more resilient, and more attuned to His voice. Our faith grows stronger as we learn to trust in His faithfulness, even when the answers don't come as quickly as we would like. The process of waiting is not easy, but it refines us, and it strengthens our relationship with God. Ultimately, God's timing is perfect because it is rooted in His love for us. He knows exactly when we need what we are asking for and how it will best serve His greater purpose for our lives. When we wait on Him, we position ourselves to receive His blessings, not just in the form of our desires being met, but in the deeper peace that comes from knowing we are trusting in the one who is good, faithful, and wise beyond measure. God's timing may not always align with our own, but when we trust in it, we find that it is always the perfect timing. God is greater than our hearts. There are times in life when we are our own harshest critics. We may feel guilty, overwhelmed, or unworthy, and in those moments, our hearts can condemn us. We might replay our mistakes, dwell on our shortcomings, or fear that we are too flawed to be loved or accepted. In those times, it's easy to feel as though we are beyond hope, or that our failures define who we are. But in 1 John 3:20, we are reminded of a powerful truth. If our hearts condemn us, we know that God is greater than our hearts and He knows everything. This verse is a profound reminder that God's knowledge, love, and grace far surpass our own self-judgment. Our hearts can often be deceiving. We might feel guilty over things that God has already forgiven us for, or we may become weighed down by anxiety and doubt, thinking that we are not good enough. But God's perspective is different. While our hearts may condemn us, God sees the bigger picture. He knows everything about us, not just our mistakes, but our deepest struggles, our fears, and our hopes. His love is not conditional on our perfection. It is unconditional and never dependent on our ability to earn it. When our hearts tell us that we are unworthy or too broken, we can remember that God's love is greater than our feelings. His love isn't swayed by our failures or our doubts. He understands us in ways we cannot fully comprehend, and His knowledge of us is perfect. This is both comforting and freeing. When we feel weighed down by guilt or anxiety, we can remind ourselves that God's love isn't based on how we feel about ourselves. He doesn't love us less because of our mistakes or our moments of weakness. In fact, His love for us is unshakable and constant, regardless of how we feel. This doesn't mean that our feelings and struggles don't matter. God is fully aware of the pain we experience in our hearts, and He cares deeply about it. But it does mean that our feelings of guilt, doubt, or inadequacy do not define us in God's eyes. He is greater than our hearts, and His love and grace can heal and restore us, even when we feel lost or unworthy. The knowledge that God is greater than our hearts also invites us to trust in His understanding of us. We may not always be able to make sense of our own emotions or figure out why we feel the way we do, but we can trust that God knows us perfectly. He knows what we are going through and how we feel, even when we can't put it into words. And because He knows us so deeply, His love for us is not based on a surface-level understanding. It is rooted in His perfect knowledge of who we truly are, both in our brokenness and in our potential. When we feel condemned by our own hearts, we can take comfort in knowing that God's grace is bigger than our failures. His mercy covers us, and His forgiveness is deeper than we can imagine. We don't have to hide from God or fear that we are beyond redemption. He is greater than our doubts, our mistakes, and our guilt. His love for us is constant, and He knows everything about us, everything we've been through, and everything we will ever face. And in that love, He offers us peace, healing, and the assurance that we are never beyond His reach. God's names reflect His character. Throughout the Bible, God reveals His character not only through His actions, but also through the names by which He is called. Each name reflects a different aspect of who He is and what He offers to His people. These names are more than just titles. They are expressions of God's nature, showing us His heart and His promises. Understanding the meaning behind God's names can deepen our relationship with Him and give us confidence in His ability to provide, bring peace, and be with us in every season of life. One of the most well-known names of God is Jehovah Jireh, which means the Lord will provide. This name is introduced in the story of Abraham when God provided a ram to be sacrificed in place of Abraham's son Isaac. When we call God Jehovah Jireh, we are reminded that God sees our needs even before we do, and He provides for us in ways we may not expect. Whether it's financial provision, emotional support, or guidance in difficult decisions, this name assures us that we are never forgotten, and God will always provide exactly what we need at the right time. It is an invitation to trust that He is faithful to supply for us, even when the way forward seems unclear. Another powerful name of God is Jehovah Shalom, meaning the Lord is peace. In a world filled with chaos, anxiety, and uncertainty, this name offers us comfort and assurance. God as our peace is not simply a temporary calm in the midst of a storm. His peace is deep, lasting, and transcends our understanding. It is a peace that settles our hearts even when life is difficult, a peace that guards us from fear and worry. When we turn to Jehovah Shalom, we are reminded that true peace comes from God alone. His peace is not dependent on our circumstances, but on his unchanging presence and character. This name assures us that no matter what we face, God's peace is available to us, and we can rest in his presence. Emmanuel, meaning God with us, is one of the most beautiful names of God, especially in the context of our struggles and challenges. This name is most often associated with the birth of Jesus, as foretold by the prophet Isaiah and confirmed in the New Testament. Emmanuel reminds us that God is not distant or detached from our pain. He is with us, present in our lives, walking beside us through every moment. In times of loneliness or hardship, the name Emmanuel reassures us that we are never alone. God is with us in our joys and sorrows, offering his strength, comfort, and guidance every step of the way. His presence makes all the difference, turning our fear into faith and our despair into hope. In Proverbs 18:10 we are told, "The name of the Lord is a fortified tower. The righteous run to it and are safe." This verse speaks to the power and safety found in God's names. Just as a fortified tower is a place of refuge and protection, so too are God's names a source of safety and security. When we run to God, whether we are in need of provision, peace, or simply his presence, we are safe. The very essence of his names provides us with a refuge, a place where we can find everything we need to face life's challenges with confidence. God's names are not just for us to remember, but to hold on to, trusting that he will fulfill every promise they represent. As we meditate on these names, we are reminded that God's character is unchanging and his promises are sure. He is Jehovah Jireh, our provider, Jehovah Shalom, our peace, and Emmanuel, God with us. No matter what we face in life, these names remind us that God is always faithful to meet our needs, bring us peace, and remain with us through every season. In every circumstance, we can turn to him as our safe place, knowing that his character is a constant source of hope and assurance. Trust in God leads to victory. Life often feels like a series of battles, whether they're personal struggles, emotional pain, or challenges in relationships. At times, the weight of our problems can feel overwhelming, like a burden we can't carry on our own. It's easy to feel defeated or to wonder if things will ever improve. But in the midst of these battles, the Bible assures us that victory is found through trusting in God. In 1 Corinthians 15:57, we are reminded, "But thanks be to God, he gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ." This verse speaks to the ultimate truth that, despite how heavy our struggles may seem, God's purpose will always prevail, and trusting in him leads to victory. The first step in experiencing this victory is understanding that God is not distant from our struggles. He is fully aware of the challenges we face and the pain we endure. In fact, he is with us through every step of the journey. Trusting in God doesn't mean that life's battles will magically disappear, but it does mean that we are never alone in those battles. He promises to fight for us, to give us the strength we need, and to guide us toward victory, even when the path seems uncertain. Victory in God doesn't always look like what we expect. Sometimes we envision victory as an immediate resolution to our problems, a quick fix to our struggles. But God's victory is deeper. It's not just about our circumstances changing. It's about the transformation that happens within us as we trust him. Victory in God's eyes means that we grow in faith, that we learn to rely on him more, and that we become stronger, wiser, and more aligned with his will. It's a victory that doesn't just change our external circumstances, but also our hearts and minds. Trusting in God also means surrendering control. We often try to handle our battles on our own, believing that we must fight every fight ourselves. But God invites us to lay down our burdens and trust that he will lead us to victory in his perfect time. This act of surrender doesn't mean that we sit back and do nothing. Rather, it means that we acknowledge God as the ultimate source of our strength and victory. We do our part, but we rely on his wisdom, guidance, and power to accomplish what we cannot do on our own. When we trust God, we can have assurance that he is working everything together for our good. Even in the darkest moments when victory seems impossible, we can have hope because we know that God's purpose will always prevail. His victory is secure, and when we trust in him, we are invited to be part of that victory. We are reminded that the ultimate victory was already won through Jesus Christ. Jesus' death and resurrection secured our victory over sin and death, and that victory extends to every area of our lives. Whatever battle we face, we can stand firm knowing that Jesus has already won the greatest victory for us. Ultimately, trusting in God brings peace in the midst of struggle. It may not always take away the pain or remove the difficulty, but it assures us that victory is certain. God's timing is perfect, and he will bring us through each battle in his way and in his time. When we trust in God, we have hope, knowing that no matter what happens, he is faithful and he will lead us to victory. Whether that victory is in our hearts, our circumstances, or our lives as a whole. Victory isn't just the end of the battle. It's the assurance that with God, we are always moving toward the good things he has for us. Through Jesus Christ, we have ultimate victory over sin, death, and anything that would seek to defeat us. And with every battle we face, we can trust that God will give us the strength, courage, and wisdom to overcome, knowing that in the end, he leads us to victory. Conclusion. When life becomes overwhelming, let us remember that God's purpose, timing, and love remain steadfast. As we draw closer to him, we find the strength, peace, and hope we need to persevere. Whatever trials you face, trust in this truth. God is always with you, working for your good and his glory. Wait patiently, for in his divine timing, you will witness his blessings unfold.